Okay, so in today's class, we'll be learning about how structures, so what is nothing but array of structures. So up in the last class, we learned about what actually a structure is and how a structure can be defined and how a structure variables can be declared and how structure values can be initialized. We have seen with an example like a dot operator will be used to assign the values to that one. The same thing I am revising once again. Quickly I will revise that. If you see here, I have created one structure and this is the way where we are telling like what is the name of the structure and what are all the values, like what are all the members of are there in your structure. So I want to store the roll number, department code and CGPA of the student. Okay, so here if you observe, we have structure of values of different data types. So that is why it is defined as structure is a collection of heterogeneous data type elements. Got it? Now once a structure is defined like this, we can create variables for this structure by simply following this structure. Struct and struct is a keyword, and then we need to write the name whatever we have given for the structure, and then what are all the value variables you want to create, you can do. Then for A, you will be having roll number, department code, CGPA, and for B a variable will be having roll number, department code, CGPA, and also for C all these three will be available. And in the last class we learned like for creating this variables and for creating the declaring the structure variables, we have 4 methods. So any one of those 4 methods can be used. This is one among those 4 methods. Okay, so once a structure is defined and the variables are declared like this, then we can assign the values for individual structure elements. In the last class we already learned these are called as members of our structure. So the for these variables, for each variable, for each member element in the structure, values can be assigned by using your dot operator. This is what we learned in the last class. Okay, now what is the problem with this one is, suppose let me explain this one. Let us call this is one. This is the thing we have created. We have created 3 ABC, nothing but let us consider for your understanding. I am writing S1 is one student, S2 is another student, S3 is another student. Then we have created 3 students. Each student is having his roll number, department code and CGPA. That means for S1, you will have roll number, department code and CGPA. And how that can be assigned? By writing S1 dot roll number like that. Similarly, you have created one more variable S2, and for S2 also you will be having the roll number, department code and CGPA. Similarly for S3, another student who is having his roll number, department code and CGPA. Now, it is okay if you have 3 students only in the class, but that in a real time, we may not be having only 3 students in the class. Minimum of 50 students will be there in the class. In such a case, what we need to do? We need to create 50 variables like this, isn't it or not? That is what we have learned till now. If you want to create, if you want to store data for 50 students, what we need to do? We need to create S1, S2, S3, S4, S5. Like that, you need to create 50 variables. Yes, 50, and each variable will be having the roll number, department code and CGPA. That is very big task and it is very time taking process also, and the number of lines of code that are there in your program will also be increased. What we need to do? S1 dot roll number, S1 dot department code, S1 dot CGPA we need to ask, and also S2 dot roll number, S2 dot department code, S2 dot CGPA we need to give. Like that, we need to have 50 students. 50 into each student will be having 3 statements for reading the value. So total value is 150 statements will be there in your code. Isn't it or not? And also if it is for 50 students, if it is a class of 100 students, again it will be doubled. Right? So to reduce this complexity of our code and to reduce the work to read the data, if then for the say, let us consider the students is same, like 50 students if you want to create. Instead of creating 50 variables, we can go with our next concept where we can use array of structures concept, where instead of declaring 50 variables, we will be declaring only one variable, one structure variable we will be declaring, and that variable will be a array. How that can be done, I'll show you. So the same example, so I will be explaining the concept with an example where we want to store and access the name, ID, name and percentage of a student, of 3 students. For our understanding, let us start with the 3 students. We can extend that one to n number of students. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to read ID, name and percentage of 3 students using structure, array of structures. Now how that can be done, you can see here. Observe here, in the earlier case, what we have written, struct, this is our array name, structure name, and then we used to write S1, S2, S3 like that. So on up to S50 we used to write. Instead of writing like this, these 50 variables can be grouped together and can be written as S of array like this. Observe carefully all of you what I have done here. What we have done, instead of writing 50 variables, we have used only one variable, and that variable is converted to an array variable which is capable of storing 50 values. Then how can we write? Struct, so struct student, in place of we can write S of 50 we can write. Instead of writing these 50 variables, we can write S of 50. Now what do you mean by that one? We have a structure 50, a structure variable called S, and every element, and it is a of array type. That means it is capable of storing 60 values. Now how can we assign the values? We can assign the values by using this for loop like this. To understand this one, let us take a simple example. Follow this example all of you carefully. Now what I have done, I have created one structure, okay, and this structure belongs to a student. Name is student. Any name can be given. It should be followed with a struct keyword. And roll number we are accepting, department code we are accepting, and CGPA. So integer data type, character data type, and float data type. And here we need to end with the semicolon. Now coming into the main function, I have created, so here there should be a semicolon. I have created 50 student array. This is a class, is a variable name. If you want, you can use any name here, no problem. Here it is taken class of 50. So for this structure, we are creating array of structures. Are you understanding? We are creating array like this. How many values? 50 like this. We have 50 entries, and each entry is a structure again. That means let us consider this structure. This element will be pointing to roll number, department name and CGPA. Again it is pointing to the roll number, department name and CGPA. So we can say this is a concept of array of structures. Now how you will be reading the values for that one? You will be reading the values for that one using your for loop statement, where you need to ask, suppose if you want to read for all the 50 students, then n value will be obviously 50, or else you can generalize this one by asking the user the number of students. After this, what we are doing, you need to ask the value, like first student is 0, second student is 1, next one is 2. So class of 0 of roll number, that means 0 of roll number is nothing but for this 0 student, what is the roll number? For this 0 student, this is for I equal to 0 I am talking, class of 0 department code. For this student, what is the department code and what is the CGPA? So for first iteration, all the 3 values for our first student will be accepted. In the next iteration, what happens? I value will be 1. Again, we are accepting the roll number, department code and CGPA. Are you understanding? So this will be repeated for the 50 times. Now after reading all the values, you can have your own printf code. You can write down that code where you can add a for loop for that one. I'll show you the code for this one, how I have developed. You can see the screen, I think. Now if you see here, all these things, I think you all are clear why we have included these header files and all. And this is the structure. For your understanding, I have taken a student as the name of the structure. Name, ID, I want to store the name, ID and marks of the student. And I have closed this one. Now in the main method, here I want to finish my code. Now I want to create 50 students. How can you create 50 students? Can any one of you tell me? How can we create 50 students? Normal procedure is we need to write struct student, and then we need to write S1, S2, S3, S4, like that we need to write S50. But If you are using, this is a normal way of doing, but if you are using a concept of array of structures, then how can you do that one? You can do that one by writing struct student. You can write, if you want, let us consider your class capacities of 50 students. You can simply create an array where this array is capable of storing, 50 structures, and each element will be having three values: name, id and marks. Now let us read the values for all those 50 students. How we will be reading? Normally if you are reading for array, we will be using the for loop. So let us consider, for our simplicity, let us first ask the user printf enter number of students, because if each time giving the 50 values will be very difficult for us. So let us reduce our work, enter number of students. Okay. After that, let us read that value in n. So the n value will be holding the value of, if anything is missing, you please let me know in the chat box. I can add that. I think n is not declared, right? So n has to be declared, and n is used to find out the number of students in our class. Right? Now I am using my for loop to read the values. I am using a variable called I. I is already declared, and I less than n, because 0 to n minus 1 we need to read I plus plus. And in each iteration we will be asking the user, we will be reading the values scanf. First value is name, so it is string percentage s, right? Next value is id percentage d. Next value is percentage f. I think you all know this one. Why we have written percentage s? Percentage s stands for string. Percentage d stands for this. Percentage s is for name. Percentage d is for id. Percentage f is for float. So if you are reading a string, no need to write ampersand. Directly you can write s of I dot, what is that one? Name. Directly you can write name. Sorry. Name. Okay. And the second value is integer. You need to use ampersand. S of I dot, what is that one? ID. Next one is ampersand. S of I dot, what is that? Marks. Now this is the way how we are reading the values. Now at each iteration, let us print the values. So for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Okay. So I want to display printf inverted commas. In that I want to write student, whichever student will be, he is percentage d details. Just for our understanding, I am adding this one, and here I will be writing I. That means I will be getting a printf statement like student 0 details, like that. Okay. Let me put slash in here. And then I am trying to print the values. Printf, what is the first one? Name. Okay. Percentage yes. Where the name is stored? The name is stored in s of I dot name. Okay. And then printf, what is the next one? ID. Okay. So ID is percentage d, and the value is stored in s of I dot ID. Next one, printf slash n, what is that? Marks percentage d, sorry, it is f, s of I dot marks. So this is the end of our for loop. This is the end of our program. I hope you all are clear with this program. So let us run this program. If any errors are there, that will be displayed. Okay, no errors are there. Let us check our program. It is asking for the number of students. To reduce my work, I have given 3. You can give up to 50. So it is asking, it is first student data. It is asking, let us consider Ravi. And the next one is ID 123. Oh, why it is not accepting the other values? Is there any mistake in that? Let me check the output. Floating point formats not linked, abnormal program termination. What is wrong with this? So if you check here what we have done the modification, instead of taking the float value, we have taken the integer value and we are trying to read the values. For all the students and we are trying to print that value. Let us once again compile this. So it is asking us to enter the number of students, 3 students it is asking. So we need to first give the first student details. Again, I'm giving the same, whatever value you want, you can give. So Ravi is the name, 123 is the ID, 78 is the percentage, like marks. Second student details, I'm giving Raj, and then the ID is I have given 234 and the percentage let us consider 89. And the last one is let us consider Sita is the name, and then 345 let us consider the ID, and percentage let us consider 98. So we need to get the details like this. If you see here, student 0 details, name, ID, marks we are getting. Student 1 details, Raj, name, ID and marks we are getting. Similarly, student 2 details. Don't get here indexing we are trying to represent. Suppose if you want to get the particularly student 1, student 2, student 3 like that only, then what we need to do here? We need to simply write I plus 1. That's it. So let us check that one also once again. 3 student details. Ravi, 1, 2, 3, 67. Raj, 2, 3, 4, 78, 3, 4, 5, 89. Okay, so if you check, you can see student 1 details we are getting. Earlier we got 0, now we have modified this one. Now what you need to understand from this program is we have used array, and each element in that array is a structure. So that is what I want to tell you people. So here we have created an array and each element in that array is a structure. That means each element, that is S of 0, S of 1, S of 2 are the elements, and each element is a structure where each element is pointing to all these 3 members. And how we can read the values, that can be done by using this scanf statement, and how we can print the values, that can be done by using this for loop and printf statement. Got it? So this is how array of structures can be used. Array of structures can be used to read values, to print the values. Is this concept clear to you, all of you? How array of structures can be used? Normally, array of structures are used to minimize the number of variables we are using in our program. It is a real-time application. Like student details, if you want to store, instead of creating a number of student variables, simply create one variable and make it as an array. Is this concept clear to all of you? So this is the end of this concept, array of structures.